X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Zach. Adam, I've been thinking a lot about stuff recently.
Wow, very reflective. What's going on?
Very reflective. Well, you know, you're a parent, I'm a parent.
Yes, that's true.
I think we can both say that kids changed our lives, and I think they made us reassess different things about ourselves and our priorities and how we thought things should run in the world, because having a child really does change you.
Sure.
I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. But there's a question that I had for you about having children and how that has changed your experience. Did you have to have kids to know that raising children as child assassins was wrong and bad, and you shouldn't do genetic manipulation on them for, let's call it 8 to 10 years before deciding actually this is a horrific thing for me, a human person, to do?
You know, it never crossed my mind that was even morally gray area. I think everybody knows.
You never thought that, oh, well, maybe we should do child assassins, genetic monsters.
Yeah.
Just terrible trash children that we do not give any love and emotion and support to, and only make them mindless killing machines.
Yeah, it's bad enough they're making dinosaurs out there, you know, like with frog DNA. Now we got to have, assassin children. That's not cool, man. I disagree with this entire effort.
Well, it's good that you disagree, because I do think morally the X-Men comics are on your side.
Yes, I think so. I hope so.
Now, in execution, it's a whole different thing. But I like to think that they agree with you. And I like to think that this week, as we talk about X-23, that these comics are going to resonate with that mindset of maybe we shouldn't have child assassins.
Depends on the story, though. You know, we'll find out.
The stories have... Listen, there is a reason. So I'm actually curious. Before we get into the meat of the episode, I'm curious, Adam.
Yes.
When did you start to like Laura Kinney as a character?
I mean, I didn't follow Laura Kinney through, like, the Claremont era. So, like, I don't think
We need to be incredibly clear here. You're talking about, like, Claremont 2004,
yes,
2005.
Like Revolution's era. Yeah. I don't think I really, like, fell in love with the character until All New Wolverine.
I think that's fair. That's about when I started to actually like the character. And I'm more in the age demographic that should like the character. Like, I watched the X-Men Evolution episode where she first debuts when it was, I don't want to say when it aired, but I watched it on a Saturday morning.
Sure.
So I feel like that's close enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fairness, I was not reading the Marjorie Liu stuff as it was coming out. And we'll talk about that later, but I enjoy the character. I enjoy the storytelling there. But to really, like, fall in love with the character, I think, would be the all-new Wolverine run.
It takes a bit, I think, for me to warm up to the character. I'm glad she's here now, but that is in spite of everyone's best efforts to try and make her insufferable.
Especially in the early incarnations. This is just a wild storytelling choice to take a character.
How long do you think it took her to get a good story? Like, just baseline, a good story.
Probably until the Marjorie Liu stuff, you know?
I think you could make an argument for the Kyle and Yost New X-Men had some good Laura.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was like their third shot at the book, and it still took them that long. Like, I think Mercury Falling might be the first good Laura story.
Yeah. There's some Uncanny X-Force stuff, but
She was never on Uncanny X-Force specifically because Wolverine felt really bad for using her as an assassin in regular X-Force.
That's what I mean. She was in X-Force for a while. But anyway, Why are we talking about X-23 this week, Zach?
Because our episodes are themed. Oh, no. You wanted me to lead into the Patreon bit. Yes. No. We're talking about X-23 this week because Patreon supporter GJ Mez said, folks, I got this X-23 story that I want you guys to talk about. And we said, okay, it's going to be the last one we cover. What's really funny, because we didn't plan this, is that all of these are birthday themed.
Yes.
Which is a weird through line in Laura. But good for her, I guess.
Sure. And it also happens to coincide with our 250th episode. So
I forgot about that. Yeah, we've been doing this for 250 episodes.
Woo! And we'll celebrate a little bit later with some listener Q&A, but
we're not doing. Oh, we told you last week we're not doing a lot of bits on this.
No,
I'm very tired.
No bits.
We're gonna start with not her first appearance, which was in NYX, which is a terrible comic.
Oh, abominable.
We normally introduce the list at the end, but just to make sure, if anyone hasn't read NYX, we have how many stories on this list? 639 X-Men stories on this list, and NYX is 633.
There's a reason. It's bad.
It's a really bad comic. But it doesn't go into Laura's backstory in so much as it exists. Like, it doesn't have a huge backstory component to it. And this comic does. This is X-23 Volume 1. It's a miniseries collected as Innocence Lost. It is written by Craig Kyle and Christopher Yost, penciled by Billy Tan, inked by John Sybil, colors by Brian Haberlin.
Yeah, so you were joking before about the moral quandary surrounding cloning a child assassin from Weapon X, and boy, this group of geneticists really didn't stop to ask any questions, did they?
In fact, Sarah Kinney here, Sarah Kinney is, for all intents and purposes, our lead character of this mini.
Mm-hmm.
She explicitly wants a job with no oversight, no government regulations, so she can do whatever mad genetic science she wants. And that does not make me want to root for this woman. Just right from the start, it's like, listen, I don't think the government is always the best. I do have a very strong feeling that the government's stance of do not create child assassins, you weirdos, is a pretty firm one that I would support. And if like my congressman tried to repeal that, I would give them a strongly worded voicemail and say, please do not create child soldiers.
Well, it's even worse than that, because it's not even that we're just messing around with trying to clone Wolverine, but we're going to do so in a way that is going to involve this being a baby. And not only are we going to have a baby, but we're going to torture that baby, and we're going to leave it in a cell and turn it into this like trigger scent inspired killer. It's pretty rough stuff, and we didn't get any real impression of what kind of a science experiment Laura Kinney was in NYX. And here we're learning pretty explicitly what her lab origins are, and we're also getting some insight into Martin Sutter and Xander, who
Xander Rice.
Xander Rice.
The antagonist from the feature film Logan.
Oof. Xander Rice sucks. Like,
Xander Rice is bad. His dad, his dad Dale Rice was killed when Wolverine escaped Weapon X, and Xander held that grudge for a while. Xander, your dad sucked. I don't know how to tell you. I'm not saying that Wolverine should have done 50% of the murders he's done in his life. He's killed a lot of people. Your dad was one of the bad ones, though?
Well, if your dad is a spy trying to infiltrate the Weapon X project, he should probably know what he's getting into, right? It also begs the question as to how Xander really even knows what happened. Like, I know that Martin Sutter is his friend, was the friend of Dale Rice, but it's like, how, okay, this is so weird. But these two have like decided to commit their lives to this quest of developing a copy of the thing that killed his father. It's kind of weird, right?
It's weird. And it's played straight. Like, he's just so messed up from his dad dying, that he's going to make this being that's a copy of his dad's killer to sell. It's a weird plan, but it's a generic super soldier plan. Like, we've seen this in comics a lot. Mm-hmm. This is not out there. What is out there is Sarah Kinney comes to the program and it's like, hey, your DNA samples for Wolverine are really bad, which is weird because it's not like Wolverine does a good job hiding his DNA.
Right.
He leaves that stuff everywhere.
That's right. Big chunks of Wolverine just laying all over the place.
Long story short, they're like, well, actually, what we could do a female clone of Wolverine, but it'll be a baby, so we are going to have to, since it's a clone, we are going to have to, like, implant the embryo into somebody's womb and have it grow and have it just be a baby. And they don't like this plan, but they do it. They do they do coerce Sarah Kinney into carrying this pregnancy, which is weird and gross. Mm-hmm. And then it's also weird and gross that when X-23 comes out, they don't give her a name, and they all of them emotionally abuse her at every opportunity.
And
not
physically.
Even counting the...
Physically.
There's a lot of physical abuse, too.
Yeah.
It's really hard to read in some places because it's just... we are beating up this kid and making her feel terrible. Laura doesn't... the first issue she's really in, the second issue, Laura doesn't say anything but yes or no. Mm-hmm. And that's most of her dialogue for this entire series. So it's hard to... like, you feel bad because this is a terrible thing to happen to somebody. But it's hard to build up what's her character in this. And I do not think this mini does an effective job telling you who Laura is.
Well, and, you know, the way that she's written is she's just a blank slate, you know, and could be developed into just about anything. It is a hard read, I think, mainly because the villains are just relentless in their abuse of this child character. And, you know, it gets to this point where you're just like, what is the point of this character? You know, like, why are we inventing this young female character to be the subject of all of this torture, all of this abuse, to then go on to the life of a child sex worker in NYX, you know, only so that she can become the superhero she will one day become? You know, it's troubling. Let's say that, you know, like it's a hard switch to go from, hey, here's this, like, you know, burly guy from Canada who we abducted and coated his bones in adamantium, to here's a kid who we got because we forcibly impregnated one of our own scientists. Like, that's a pretty big gap between those two kinds of stories.
It really is. It's just hard to read. Like, no one is likable in this. Sarah is supposed to be your protagonist. She is the one who has done these things and then realizes, oh, actually, I can be a mother. This is my child. Here's the thing, Sarah. Sarah, here's the thing. Reading a child Pinocchio once does not a mother make.
No.
And here's what happens, because this is a Weapon X story. She's got to escape. Like, we know the bits. Mm-hmm. What Sarah does is uses Laura to get revenge on people and say, yeah, I'm going to use you as a weapon one last time.
That's right.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
And you get... and this comic leans into it very heavily. It's like, actually, I was your mother who loved you through all of this. And Sarah Kinney now gets treated as a saint in comics. Gets treated as, this was Laura's mother. She was a good person in a bad situation. She's evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's slightly less evil than the worst people ever. She's still not a good person. And it's hard to root for her. Because all I'm thinking this whole time is, why are we doing this to Laura? This is very mean and bad, guys. Don't do it.
Right. There is a subplot that involves, for whatever reason, Xander's sleeping with Martin's wife.
That's weird.
Which results in Martin's wife having a child and wanting to tell her husband that it's Xander's baby. And it's like, again, more physical abuse against this wife. It's like, why are we telling this story the way it is? Now what Kyle and Yost are good at, over the years, is sweeping action. And when there is action and we get to see Laura out in the field doing what it is that she does, it's well done. But all of the rest of it being this like traumatic experience for 6 issues where everybody is using this child against everybody else. Xander uses her to kill Martin. As you said, Sarah is eventually going to send her out loose to like kill everybody, Weapon X style, in the facility. There's no happy endings here. This is just rough.
It is rough. So I want to be very careful how I say this. The Comics Code Authority, which Marvel abandoned in 2001, was not a good thing.
No.
The reaction that a generation of writers had to being able to cuss and do bad things in a comic and do a dark comic was a gross overcorrection, and this is but one of the many, many sins that came from that. Like, again, CCA was not good. CCA would have avoided this. So it feels like a reaction to being able to have less limits, and this is definitely one of the negatives of it. Also a negative, and at least this is my opinion, but I want to hear your thoughts, Adam. Billy Tan's art is bad in this, right? Like, he does not know how to draw a child, which is a really bad thing for an X-23 book.
I'm divided on it because in some ways, the way that Tan approaches, for instance, faces and facial expressions are you're exactly right. He has tricky time with ages. So, for instance, Martin's wife, Martin is supposed to be significantly older than Xander. Martin does not look older than Xander, yet he's supposed to be his father's age, right? Martin's wife is supposed to be, I guess, similar age to Martin. Doesn't. Looks exactly the same age as Xander.
She looks like a teenager.
Exactly.
She is a child.
Right. Laura, it depends on when he's drawing her. Seems to have a sensibility of this. But I think the other thing that's really weird about this book is that it's 6 issues, but given how old Laura gets over the course of 6 issues, the sliding time scale on this has got to be huge, right? Like, this character not only goes through, we got Sarah going through her entire, pregnancy, but then you have this character who comes out the other side of it as what? Like a 12-year-old? I don't...
That is simply something you cannot worry about, Adam.
Right, I know, but...
It doesn't make sense because it's like 20 years after Weapon X, plus enough time for Laura to grow at a regular age as a human baby.
Yeah.
So 30-some years after... No, it doesn't make any sense, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's a weird story. I don't like it. I'm also not hot on Billy Tan in general, just not an artist I care for.
Yeah, you can see some of the influences on Tan's work. I don't think it's terrible by any means, but I can see that, it's certainly not going to be to everybody's taste. And
I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to guess. He came from Top Cow?
He definitely has that Top Cow influence, right?
He looks like a Top Cow guy.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I don't know that for sure, but...
Oh yes, I'm seeing the Billy Tan Tomb Raider comics.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can see that. Yep. 100%.
Oh my.
What else
yep.
did he do? Witchblade or like...
Spirit of Tao, The Darkness.
Oh, Darkness. Yeah, I could see him doing that. You know, like, it's a certain very stylized thing. Is it... This story is already kind of inherently flawed. So, I don't know. It's tough to talk about this because it's already so ingrained into what the character's origin is now that we've had so much time to pass.
It sucks. No one likes her origin.
No.
Who's sitting here saying any X-23 comic before like 2010 is a miracle that it's decent?
Well, we are going to see some others. But this one, I wasn't a huge fan of. So why don't we try ranking this on our big old list?
Like we said, we have 639 stories on our big old list right now. They're ranked from best to worst. House of X Powers of 10 is the best X-Men story that has ever existed. And quite possibly will ever exist. But I have hope, people. I have faith that a better story could come along at some point. Number 100 is Uncanny 314. That's early Frost. Number 200 is New X-Men 33 to 36, Mercury Falling, the first good X-23 story based on my estimates here. Number 300 on this list is X-Force -1. Number 400 on our list is X-Men Volume 4, 1 through 3 Primer. Number 500 on our list is Exiles 100. Number 600 on the list is X-Men Legends 2 Rise of Apocalypse, the intro comic that explains so much of the game that is not in the actual game, but is critical to understanding the game. And then 639 is the Draco.
I think we're in the 500s here. What do you think?
I mean, I think at number 400 is Primer, and Primer's better than this.
Yeah. And down at 507 is IVX, and I think IVX is better than this.
Wildcats X-Men is better than this.
Yep, I would agree.
511. Spotlight on the Starjammers is better than this. Wisdom Max is better than this. Wisdom Max is not a comic I like. I understand the impetus behind Wisdom Max. Yeah, I can get behind that. This is better than NYX, though, so...
It is, and I think it's better than Wolverine Origins 37 to 40, which was the Romulus arc. How do you think about it versus Emma Frost 1 to 6, Higher Learning?
Weirdly comparable.
Yeah, I think this is probably a little better than that.
See, I was going to say that the Emma Frost one was better.
Okay, all right. So we're in this little
we're at the
bubble
right
here.
we're at the right spot, though, is the thing.
Yeah. I think, all right, we also have this X-Man arc, 67 to 70, the Infinities of Evil, which is definitely trying to do something more interesting than this.
Yes.
Even if,
Infinities of Evil is also very bad.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
If I was doing this solo, I would say above the 2 issues where Beast joins the Avengers at 555, but below Infinities of Evil.
I think that's a great spot for it. So that's going to make this our new 555. Sorry, Laura.
It's a bad showing for X-23. And just to be clear, so someone doesn't get into our mentions. Yeah, we know. We started the show saying we like when she's Wolverine. I like how she's Wolverine now. It's really good and fun. But she's X-23 in all of these stories.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier, folks.
Well,
she's not a real person. She can't. Her feelings aren't going to be hurt by me calling her X-23 in these stories where X-23 is on the cover.
Yeah.
I know. I've read the comics also.
Well,
Adam has.
Let's talk about a better X-23 story in my estimation.
Oh, I think we're on the same boat.
This is volume 2, or is it technically volume 3?
Oh, no. There is a one-shot that Marjorie Liu did between X-23 Target X and the launch of this run. It came out... It was a one-shot that came out actually just earlier that year. So there were just 2 X-23 number 1s that came out in 2010. A feat that would not be repeated until the wonderful Squirrel Girl and Howard the Duck relaunches of Secret Wars.
Amazing times. Now, we were just talking about all the trauma that this character went through, and one of the things that I think that Lou does pretty well as part of the ongoing here, is having this character who is now aged up a little bit, starting to really deal, or not deal in some cases, with the effects of that trauma and the PTSD that she is experiencing. And I think this works pretty well, not because she's doing it on her own, but because she has this really strong bond that she has formed with none other than Gambit. And I think we've talked about this before with a shorter arc. This.
Yeah, there was an arc. I don't know. We probably talked about this 3 or 4 years ago. But it's Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda, who are currently and have for years been doing the Image series Monstrous together.
Yeah, great, cool stuff there.
And Liu is taking an interesting approach here, because I think when there's these long stories with a lot of canon to them, there's 2 approaches you can really take. One of them is, if there was a bad story, you just don't talk about it, and that's okay. And I think that's listen, we spent years just not acknowledging the existence of Azazel.
That's true. And we could have
Jason Aaron ruined that for us. We spent so long just being like, no, that didn't happen. It's fine. No one's mentioned it since. It's okay, guys.
Yeah, we can keep that up.
The other, and I think this is honestly the trickier and more dangerous approach, is to directly do a story about a terrible story. There are just as many examples of this being like a very well done approach, and like using that canon to strengthen the emotional storytelling, as there is of the story being just insufferably boring and only parsable if you've read 800 other comics. It's a high risk, high reward one. I think Lou does a very good job here.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that you have a character here who is clearly suffering from depression and is going through some real regret about the violence that her body has been used to, and it's literally like a third party has used her inception to do this terrible things. And not just the creators of her. You know, we are also coming to terms in this arc with some of the violence that Wolverine made her do. So we're
with the X-Force stuff, which I had forgotten gets discussed here.
Yeah,
and frankly, it doesn't like it. It makes Wolverine's actions and having her on the X-Force team make sense.
Yeah,
like Wolverine didn't want that in the story. But this is, you know, whether it's him justifying it to himself or whatever, like, this is directly addressing, hey, Wolverine, you did use her on your assassin team that you kept secret from everybody?
Right. So we're seeing Laura not only self-harm, but we're also seeing her sort of question her actual existence. And I think what's clever in this arc is that Gambit thinks that by bringing Wolverine and then Vampire Jubilee to come hang out with them in Paris, that this might make Laura feel a little bit better. Unfortunately, Gambit is also aware that the dynamic that Wolverine has with Jubilee and their relationship is at odds with the relationship that Wolverine has with X-23. I think this is really well written in the way that these young ladies who have been mentored by this other character, or in some cases, she's, you know, in Laura's case, she's a clone of this individual. It's fascinating to see Marjorie play with those character interactions.
It's well known that Wolverine takes in stray girls like they're cats off the street.
It's true.
We know he does this. It's one of his most admirable traits. What we never really get is having those characters interact. Like, you don't get that Bat Family kind of dynamic of all of the Robins, like, having their own tit-a-tat with each other in their own relationships. It's Kitty's over here, and Jubilee's over here, and Marrow is in a sewer somewhere, and Armor's over here, and Laura's over here. And you never get them talking, and
it's true.
This is interesting on that. Also, erotically charged. with the Jubilee and Laura interactions when Laura lets Jubilee lick her neck. There's no non-horny way to do that, especially with Sana Takeda art, which is just incredibly lush and sapphic to begin with.
Sana is using anime reference. That's kind of the influence on the art, and the text of that scene is that Laura is essentially challenging Jubilee to kill her, right? She's gotten to this point, and so she's seeing if she can use this other character as a weapon for her own demise. There's a lot of layers to what's going on here, and I think that's what makes it really interesting. Is because
it's an emotionally charged scene.
It is, and it's also not sort of wrapped up in a nice tidy bow. It's this is a character who is still going to be going through a healing process, and everybody acknowledges it, and now we're sort of at least deciding on how to best be a support system for this character.
Well, I think that's what's interesting here, because there are lesser writers who would say, take Laura's trauma, do one arc about it, and then walk away and say, and now she's good.
Mm-hmm.
And Lou doesn't do that. She says, this is always going to be part of you. You can't, exercise this from yourself. What you can do is find a way to live with it, because your options are to live with it or to die.
Right.
And that's a very... I talked about the Comics Code Authority and, mature stories that you couldn't do under that. This is the other side of that. This is using violence and using sex and using blood and using all of this to tell a real emotional story. And I think it works incredibly well, because it is so character driven. It's centered on Laura, but you also have three other characters that are both interacting with Laura and with each other, that you understand their relationships just like that.
Yes.
Everyone has a vibe, and it grows through these three issues.
Mm-hmm. Now, to say, there's a lot of sort of emotional stuff. There is also an action plot that happens and really culminates in the final issue, as the four main characters are trying to fight against this airborne virus that turns people into what? They're kind of like vampire zombies.
It's a trigger scent virus.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they're all going to kind of bash each other's faces in if these four can't stop it. Yeah. So there is an action element to it.
What I'd say is what Lou does is makes sure that the plot is directly tied to the emotional consequences of the story. This is about control and bloodlust and coming to terms with your past and Laura's very specific trauma. These are all interconnected.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. To the point where, the last person that she sees sort of recovering from this trigger scent is a small baby, and Lou is clearly making that connection between the two. So I really enjoyed this. I think it's a fantastic display of how you can take a story that maybe another writer... Maybe, I don't want to say that the story we were just talking about is mean-spirited, but there's a element of that in the way in which it's traumatizing its character. And this is saying, no, this is what would actually have happened to this individual had she gone through this, and this is how she can start to move on, which I think is really difficult to do, like you said.
So... We have one other story from the Lou X23 series at 392, which is Songs of the Orphan Child, which loses a lot of points because it's a Ms. Sinister plot, and that's tough.
Yeah.
I think this is a much stronger synthesis.
Oh, I agree.
Of everything.
Yeah, and that's all the way down at 392.
I like this better than Mercury Falling at 200.
I agree. I think we're up there. This is pretty well done. This is better than Cross Time Capers at 193 from X-Men Blue.
178 is Enemy of the State 2.
I think the character work here is stronger than that.
That's what I am saying.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. That is very much a story where Laura confronts her trauma and is over it now.
Yes.
And I understand we had to take certain elements finally off the table, but it is... Tom Taylor writes very optimistic comics, very idealized comics, and I think I want a little bit deeper story than that.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay. There's some ones that I just like better up here in the 160s, like Cable, Blood, and Metal, and the Red Skull takedown arc of Uncanny Avengers. What are your thoughts?
What I would say actually is right between those two.
Okay.
Is where I'm looking, because I think Blood and Metal is better.
Yeah.
Above that, we've got like the Wolverine Wanted Dead or Alive, the backdoor pilot for Alpha Flight. It's really good. AVX Consequences, Wolverine Snicked, Attack on Weapon Plus, or Assault on Weapon Plus. I think those are probably stronger. But right below this, we've got like the Jean Grey Psych Wars, Extermination, Battle of the Atom. Like we have some stuff that this is definitely stronger than. So I'd say between that Uncanny Avengers arc and Blood and Metal.
Great. So that's going to make this our new 169.
Yes, it is.
Nice.
It absolutely, positively is. It's very nice, Adam.
Yeah.
Now we get to the one that was actually requested for this. And I know this is one that you have some thoughts about, and I'm excited to see, because I think we're gonna have an interesting conversation here. This is X-23 Volume 4, 1-5, 2 birthdays and 3 funerals. It is written by Mariko Tamaki with pencils or with art by Juan Cabal. Marcio Fiorito does some work at the end of the last issue of it, but Cabal's the main artist on here. Nolan Woodard is the colorist.
Yeah, I think we should probably just start by talking about the context of leading up to this. We had just finished the beloved run of All New Wolverine. I think a lot of people really liked that, connected with that character. That was a pretty solid run for a lot of people. And then Marvel announced that instead of All New Wolverine continuing with the further adventures of Wolverine, that she was going to be called X-23 again, which I think we've talked about this on the show before. If we haven't, we'll talk about it now. Seems antithetical to what Tom Taylor was doing with All New Wolverine in her finally shedding that name. I mean, by the time we get to the end of All New Wolverine, she is Laura Kinney. She is Wolverine. She is not this lab number anymore, and she has shed that and put it behind her. And yet, in this series, she's being marketed back as this version of the character. Despite
Which,
she's not wearing the Wolverine costume anymore. She's got Gabby by her side, but we're sort of backtracking with this character, at least the way in which it's being promoted.
and to provide some additional context to that for people who weren't reading comics in 2017, 2018-ish, Laura was never the Wolverine, is the thing. She got the title, but she wasn't even the primary Wolverine book.
No.
Like, Old Man Logan was the book. Old Man Logan was the guy on the flagship teams. Wolverine was on the secondary squads.
Right.
Like, that's the truth of it. Sabretooth got a lot of play in things and events and crossovers and things like that. Laura was always playing second fiddle. So this felt like when they're bringing Logan back, this felt like them saying, and now Laura definitely doesn't count because we got all these dude Wolverines that we gotta push there. And that was unfortunate and very frustrating at the time. It also didn't help that, especially once they redesigned the costume out of the yellow into that slick gray with the jacket, Wolverine look, it was fantastic, and it was weird that they wanted to change that. But I do also understand from a marketing standpoint, Wolverine is the guy that Hugh Jackman played and the guy that was in the 92 animated series and in the arcade games. Like, I understand that impulse, but if DC can have a billion Green Lanterns, we can have, like, 2 Wolverines, I think.
Exactly. I think it's pretty cynical in the way in which these decisions might have been made. There is...
Well, it's...
Go ahead.
Go on.
I was just going to say, there's a very like superficial explanation at some point in these issues that sort of like tries to explain why she is using that as her name. It's not a really good explanation, and it's just sort of tossed in there haphazardly.
I think it's very funny in retrospect that just about a year and some change later, there is that scene in X-Men #4 by Hickman where she puts on the suit to go into the vault, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm Wolverine," and Wolverine's like, "Yeah, you are."
Yeah.
It's good, actually, and it makes this whole thing seem silly. And now she is the Wolverine on the Team X-Men. Like, she is getting the play.
Yes.
That she should have gotten back in the day. So it's good to see now. And with that in mind, like, I think you and I both, because we were friends at the time. We were doing the podcast at the time.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we were doing the podcast at
250 episodes, Zach.
250 episodes, buddy. Happy birthday. I don't know how podcast birthdays work. Anyway, I know you and I were both like going into this series with a chip on our shoulder.
Sure.
We were mad about it. We were like, "Oh, come on. We see through this."
All right.
And I know that I did not give Mariko Tamaki a fair shake going into this story.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you responded to it coming back to it, because I responded a heck of a lot more favorably when I was rereading this.
I did too. I had skipped this completely. I think I let the chip on my shoulder, as you describe it, just lead me to want to pass this by, which is unfortunate. I don't think this arc or this book in general gets everything right, but it does have some really cool things. So first off the bat, Wonka Ball is a freaking monster artist. Like artwork.
Did you read Wonka Ball's Guardians of the Galaxy with Al Ewing?
No, I did not.
Hey Adam,
do that.
You should go read Wonka Ball in Al Ewing's Guardians of the Galaxy. At least read the issue where Star-Lord travels the horoscopes in all of the known universe, and also ends up in a polytriad for just a lot of time.
Oh my god.
It's a wild good story.
There is sort of a, I don't know if you can see this, if you're seeing it when you look at his art, but there is just the tiniest little dash of Frank Quitely to the way that he draws things.
Yep. Because his lines are so tight.
Yes, and there is a direct callback to some Quitely stuff, because this is, despite being a Laura and Gabby arc, it is largely about the Cuckoos. And I want to get into that, but before I do, I just want to say that one of the things that this arc nails, which I think is really important, is it still gets Laura and Gabby. It gets their relationships, and Gabby is written really, really well here. And I like
this. Is my second favorite Gabby. The only Gabby that beats it is Vida Ayala's Gabby.
Yeah, there's good stuff happening here.
It's fantastic. Like, Gabby has a tendency, and Taylor did this. Taylor did this too, of getting too like squee, too like, oh look, I'm the cute, funny little girl. And that's annoying. Where they feel like characters, and Laura feels like a big sister. Like, it gets that right level of, I love this child and would do anything for her. Also, I'm an adult woman and this is a child.
Yes.
Like, this is lived experience right here.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that's really working. What is, I think, really weird to go back in this arc is the way in which this story revolves around the Cuckoos trying to clone and resurrect their two dead sisters. One of which, I believe, is it Sophie? Which is the one that's...
Sophie's good, Esme's bad.
Esme's bad.
Mindy, Phoebe, and Celeste are in between.
Right. So Esme eventually trying to take over Gabby's body and like wreak havoc everywhere. Now, what's wild about this is just how, like you said, just a short time in the future, we're going to see those five Cuckoos, and they're not going to really bear an exact resemblance to the characters that are here. This also very clearly ignores the character development that Bendis had with the three cuckoos sort of becoming more individuals. So
Okay, so I agree with that criticism, and you know I'm a fan of the Brian Michael Bendis X-Men. I gotta. We have a podcast called Battle of the Atom.
That is true.
We it's a good name. Also, we like that stuff. It was also the stuff that was coming out when me and Adam became friends.
It's true.
Hey, if you want to know the whole origin story, there you go. But I think each of the cuckoos have had their moment of trying to break out from the group. Each of them have gone after a boy and tried to figure something out, or tried to stake it out on their own, and they always revert back. Like it's like a magnetic pull that they can't get too far away, and they always pull back. I also think this is partly the influence of Esme.
Yes.
Who is pushing them to be weird, creepy ladies, which is great. That is the ideal cuckoos, because even if I showed you a picture of one of the cuckoos from the Bendis era, even with their different haircuts, could you tell me which one was which?
No. I mean, maybe at the time I could, but like not now. No, because they haven't stuck with it.
Well, and that's the thing. Like they had some individuality, but they are roughly the same gestalt of character, and I think that's a very interesting type of character that you only really get in comics. So I'm fine with them moving back to that, but I can appreciate the frustration of the things that were lost.
Yeah, it's I think taken on its own, and especially if you're a Morrison fan, this is kind of a cool arc, right? Because you have Laura and Gabby, both clones, fighting against another team of clones who are trying to deal with their identity issues, and
they're all having clone problems.
Yes.
Like they are having the kind of problems that you only get as clones,
right? And having to kind of just deal with what their current status is. One of the other things I really love that, and I don't know if this is from a writing angle or if this is Cabal doing this, there are so many like cute little funny in-joke things in the art. Like there is a Fitbit at one point that is labeled Fit Fat Foom. There is a restaurant, like a diner that they pass, that's in the Marvel font, but instead of it saying Marvel Fanfare, it says Marvel Falafel. I just like there's X-Cow is in the background of one of these scenes. Like there's all of these
Evelyn the X-Cow, a character who
Easter
absolutely
eggs.
is on Krakoa, and no one can argue with me.
All these little Easter eggs that I think are fantastic.
I love Cabal's art. It's so detailed, so stylized, and his action dynamic.
Yeah.
Some of the most dynamic stuff that's happening in comics. Like he's currently doing Black Panther right now with John Ridley. And that is a book where the action sings. It works really well when he gets going. And I feel like Cabal he doesn't get the praise of a Pepe Larraz or even like an RB Silver, some of the bigger names at Marvel today. Like he doesn't get the same pop that like Ryan Stegman would get. Oh my gosh, I think Cabal is one of the best artists in the business, and there's going to be something that blows up and like sends him into the stratosphere, and I don't know what it is, but something is going to get him there. Mark my words, because he is too good of a talent to not. Either that, or someone's going to get him for a high profile, like creator owned thing, and say, you can actually own this, and it's going to be massive. It's going to hit. It's going to hit.
It's got to at some point. I mean, just his anatomy alone. I mean, this guy knows what he is doing. So I definitely think if you were like me and you skipped this based on its title and its premise, definitely revisit it. I think the art is good, and I think if you can look at it just from within its, like, treat it just from it, like, try and separate it from the eras that precede and follow it, and I think you might enjoy it. There's some really fun stuff here.
It's good. I love the Laura, because this is a Laura that is... She is what the modern Laura should be. Like, she's not a mindless killing machine, but she's still a reserved person. She's still an introvert. She is still kind of sorting herself out and doesn't have all the confidence that she needs, but She's doing her best, and I love to see it. I love the honey badger. Mm-hmm. I love Cabal's Cuckoo's design,
yes,
which has been like slightly tweaked for the new era, and it's so good.
Yeah, the capes are great.
They are really good. This book is fun. It's funny, and it's got a good emotional core to it. So give this series another shot. If you're like us who didn't like it or didn't stick with it at the time, this is worth revisiting. It got Mariko Tamaki got dealt a bad hand, and listen, she doesn't need the help. She's doing fine on her own. But I honestly feel like Tamaki, because Tamaki had a moment at Marvel. She did, and I don't think that she got a fair shake, because she had like that She-Hulk book that was starting from a point of this is a bad status quo for She-Hulk.
Yeah.
She got the X-23 books that were this is starting from a bad status quo for Laura, and then eventually she moved off pretty quickly from that.
All right.
So
check it out. Better or worse than the Lou that we just talked about at 169?
I think it's like right there.
Yeah, we're not that far off.
I think this is better than Extermination, which you just highlighted at 175, which is a very similar era.
Yeah. I think we're right around at 173. We have Jean Grey, Psych Wars, and we're in similar territory there.
Psych War. Here's the problem with Psych Wars. It doesn't actually have a good ending at all.
No, it doesn't.
It has an ending. It has an ending where Dennis Hopeless was like, "Crap, the book has to end, and it has to tie into what everyone has admitted was a last-minute curveball on what the story Phoenix Resurrection was going to be."
I liked this better than at 171. We have Amazing X-Men 1-5, The Quest for Nightcrawler, but I didn't like it as much as the Uncanny Avengers Red Skull Takedown arc at 170.
Then let's just put it there.
All right, so this is going to be our new 171 X23 Volume 4, numbers 1 through 5. And do you want to thank the patron now?
I do want to thank GJ Mez.
Yeah.
Because that was fun. We haven't talked a lot about Laura on this podcast as much as we likely should in 250 episodes. But I had a great time. It was fun revisiting these.
Absolutely.
If you want to be like GJ Mez, you can go on over to patreon.com/comicsxf, toss a couple of coins into our coffers, and help keep this show going, help keep the site ComicsXF running, and we'll do an episode for you. Man, it's easy. Here's the thing. I was doing some math the other day, just saying, hey Adam, if we were to just quit.
Oh no.
Like if we decided, hey, we need to sunset the podcast. It's been 250 great episodes.
Yeah.
But I did the math. We'd likely have a path to 300 being our last episode.
Wow.
Just based on
where we're at right now.
What we got right now. Some of them people just haven't responded to some requests, so they could get skipped over and all that stuff. But by and large, we got a few to get through still.
Yeah, love it. Speaking of getting through them still, we did invite some listener questions, this being our 250th episode. So Zach and I are going to trade back and forth. I've read some of these, Zach. I don't know if you have. So
I didn't. I was having a very long day.
So do you want me to ask you one first? Do you want to ask me one first?
Yeah, you go first, Adam.
Okay. Speaking of quitting, which we're not doing, Christian S. asks, if you quit, one of us individually, which famous or infamous A or Z would you like to replace the other person? So you need to choose a new A and I need to choose a new Z. It can be anyone. Who is it going to be?
I would replace you with Art Adams.
Ooh, good choice. Good choice. All right.
I think that would be a fun one to replace you with.
Having met Art, I think you might have some good conversations. Z.
I think we would fight.
I'm going to go with Zach Thompson, friend of the show.
Oh, friend of the show, Zach Thompson?
Yeah, we could just talk about, like body horror and vines and stuff. That'd be fun.
We could. Hey, Zach has a new book coming out. Yeah, it's a new book coming out from Aftershock by Thompson and Ian Morrow. It comes out in July. It is a friggin' weird Canada cult history horror book based on a cult that was in Canada. I got a chance to read the first issue of this. If you like that particular weird brand of stuff, you're gonna dig it.
Sounds awesome. All right, who's next?
I've got a question for you, Adam, and that question is: would the sand monologue from Star Wars fit perfectly into a Chuck Austin X-Men issue?
The I hate sand monologue. Yeah, why not? I mean, that seems like it's on, at least at the time, Chuck Austin's writing level. So I can't think of exactly where it would go. You know, maybe it'd be Nurse Annie going on about some sort of anti-mutant rhetoric. But sure, why the heck not?
It feels Austin-esque.
It sure does. Okay, here's one from Kyle R. Still. You are both ex-collectors. Well, I think we've established that, right? We may not collect the same things, but we have ex-collections.
I'm less of a collector than you. That is. I am more or less divesting my physical media as much as I can, with weird exceptions of everything X-Men.
All right. So the question is, what X-related bucket list item do you still hope to one day find? Is there something you absolutely want to add to your collection?
I truly do. Like, I don't need to have old comics or anything like that. I would love a giant size number 1.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Like, that's the one that would get me. Like, I've told my wife she has fiat approval if she sees one to purchase it for me, because she is a thriftier person than me and goes to places where she could stumble upon one. But that would likely be like the X-related thing that I would want. Probably that. Or the Wolverine telephone that they made. But I'd have to find it in a while. I don't want to go on eBay and just get like, what? I could go and buy the Wolverine telephone. I don't want that. I want to be at a store and see the Wolverine telephone.
And take it home with you. Obviously, like the big ticket
I can buy it for $10 right now, but that's not.
It doesn't feel the same, does it?
It's not the same.
No,
I want this vintage 1994 telephone, but I want to find it when we're at a farmer's market.
Yeah, I think that's part of the joy here. Like, I have on my want list on a certain comics website the X-Men 11 Pressman edition, which is just X-Men 11, but you had to buy the X-Men board game from Pressman and mail away for this copy of it that has a silver background. It's very dumb. I could buy one for, X amount of dollars online, but I would love to just find one in a long box, Like, that would be kind of the fun of it. I'm trying to think of any other, like, obviously, like, the really... You know what I would love to have?
What would you love to have?
A Foom 10. Which is...
What is in Foom 10?
Foom 10 is the first, I believe, technical print appearance of the all-new team. Because it was printed and distributed before Giant Size. And it's just a little pamphlet, but they go for thousands of dollars.
This is $1,200 right here. That's...
I don't know. That would be cool.
Yeah, that would be... I just like weird stuff for the most part.
Me too. Like, I would settle for... I've been trying to track down... I have the regular Pizza Hut X-Men comics, but there were the mini ones that came with the VHS tapes. I also just found out that there was a robot cassette player from like the 90s that had 2 cassette dramas of X-Men, and like those seem like something I want to track down. Like, that's the weird stuff that I would want.
Yeah, it's got to be weird, because that's the thing. Like, I can read pretty much anything I want, but I want to find something like wild that I've never heard of. That's what gets me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, your turn.
Oh, that's a good question. If you were to... This comes from friend of the show, Austin Gordon. If you were to do another podcast ranking not the comics, but the podcast episodes ranking the comics, Battle of the Atom, what would your top 3 episodes be from the first 250 episodes of Battle of the Atom?
That is really tough. Because I know you probably share this opinion, but like once we do an episode and it's out in the world, I kind of forget about it.
Just
like,
out of sight, out of mind.
Right? Like I remember the stories, I remember our conversations about them. But I don't know, Austin. I don't know if I can actually rank any of them, you know?
What do you think of when you think of doing this podcast? Like, are there things that stand out from us doing them?
I think the best episodes that we do are the ones where we have the most to talk about. And I think we've had some episodes recently, like our Storm episode, where we get a chance to really like just joyfully praise a book. And then occasionally we get those episodes where we just get to trash a book. And I think those are the fun ones that are just like the most fun. I the Storm one comes to mind. How about you? Do you have favorites?
So I'm not counting our interview specials because I have a lot of fun with those. Honestly,
yeah, those are great.
Those are all good. I do like when we have guests on because it adds a fun, interesting dynamic to things that we don't get week in and week out. I love doing the show with you, buddy. But there is a unique difference with it. Here's what comes to mind as an episode, and I think it's just because it's now a very specific time capsule about where a lot of us were. And that's the episode we did about Omega Red, where I drank very bad Smirnoff vodka the entire time because it was early pandemic, and frankly, we were all spiraling.
Oh my God, I remember that. That was funny. All right, here's one.
We had some times, buddy.
Yeah, here's one. I grew a mustache.
You did grow a mustache. What was up with that? You were like live DJing on Facebook for a while, dude. We had some weird.
We were all
going through a lot.
All right, Asimov fangirl congratulates us on 250 episodes. The question is, if you were mutants and decided to live in Krakoa, would you still do your in real life jobs there? This question brought to you after questioning me if my job as an accountant would have any use there.
No, and I can tell you exactly why. Because the Krakoan market I cannot imagine they have a very big need for appliances and small electric motors.
Yeah.
I've been scouring Krakoa yet to see an HVAC system. That's going to throw me out of the market. Here's the thing, I like my job because I'm pretty good at it, and I have moved myself into a role where I get to do what I'm good at and have fun with it in that intersection of stuff I enjoy. If I could just live in paradise, no, I would not work.
No. You'd be drinking root beer from the root beer tree, right?
I would not. I hate root beer, but that's a different discussion.
All right. Beer from the
It's too sweet.
Tree? I don't know.
I would drink beer from a beer tree.
I can imagine that there might be a need for some sort of educational something there on the island due to the failed.
Yeah, have you seen their education?
That's what I'm saying.
Standards?
Like they might need some help with that. So maybe I do that. But I agree. If I could just be in like a hammock and hang out in the Green Lagoon for most days, that sounds pretty great.
This question, Adam, comes from Peyton Weirley, who asks, "What does glob taste like?"
I know. Our good friend Jason Large has made us delicious glob snacks before, which are gummy globs that have candy skeletons inside. So glob tastes like glob snacks.
Grapefruit. It's grapefruit flavored, in case people were wondering. There is one of the best things that's ever been published on the website Comics XF was on October 30th of 2020. It's called Glob Snacks: A Descent into Madness. And again, if you want to know what the pandemic did to people, here's the funniest story. Here's the funniest thing about the glob snacks. Adam, I don't know if you know this. So our friend Jason made a bunch of these Glob Herman snacks and sent them across the country. He also sent a package to Marvel.
Yeah.
And I am sure it never got to its intended recipient because the people in Marvel have been working remote this whole time. So it's very possible that someone's going to come back into the office and there's going to be a package of
Stale gummies.
At this point, stale and like melted Glob Hermans, sitting in the Marvel mail room, and I hope they're there.
Babe, I hope that's the case. All right, question from Ross. Is Professor Xavier in fact a jerk?
Yeah.
Yes. That's easy.
That one's straight up, simply easy.
Yeah, he's a jerk. He's terrible.
This one's good here. If you could draft one character from another company as an X-Men, who would be the most annoyed by that?
Oh, okay. So the character themselves is annoyed being an X-Man? It's got to be an Avenger, right? Like somebody that's like...
Well, I don't know how to tell you this, but Adam, Marvel also owns the Avengers.
Oh, it says another company.
They're from the same company.
It's another company.
They're from the same company, my dude.
You know, I think Batman would be pretty annoyed by Krakoa. Like, Batman would be pissed if he had to be part of the X-Men. The X-Men don't really solve mysteries. He
loves a good mystery. He's bad at it too.
They're all around in the daytime all the time. Like,
did you
capes.
Did you have the experience that I had of watching the Batman movie and yelling at Batman because he was too stupid to get a very basic riddle right?
I'm sure I did.
And then the joy that the movie agreed with you that it was very dumb that Batman couldn't solve this riddle.
It's okay.
I died when that happened. I have mixed feelings about the Robert Pattinson, the Batman, but the part where he says, Penguin says, "You idiot! This is the riddle. How dumb are you?" That sold me on it.
Great, right?
Because sometimes Batman just does dumb stuff.
That's right. He's an nincompoop. All right, your turn.
My answer is Hellboy, but Hellboy would be annoyed by just about anything at all times. Like he would understand. He wouldn't fight it. He'd just be like, "Yeah, crap. Okay, come on, let's go punch this. Let's go punch this bone monster."
Oh man. All right. Do we want to do any more?
Let's do like one more each.
All right. Dan at Soul Reaver Dan asks about a story we think deserves to go higher, a story we think deserves to go lower. We've gotten this question before.
We keep thinking of doing a re-ranking episode.
We do. We've yet to actually do this. Maybe we do that for episode 300.
Here's the trick about a re-ranking episode. To make it a full episode, we're going to have to talk about more than 3 stories, which means we're going to have to do extra work.
It's true.
And we just haven't done that. I'll tell you what is absolutely too high, and I think this is the biggest indication of how my tastes, and I think, Adam, you feel similar,
I know what you're
how our
say.
tastes have changed. Astonishing X-Men Gifted at number 5.
Yeah.
I think that one would drop because I think you and I value different things out of the comics now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not that it's terrible, but it doesn't belong in the top 10.
We did a re-ranking back in the Yonder days, and I argued that should go higher at the time, I believe, and Adam held me back, and he made the right call. I don't often say I'm wrong. Adam was 100% right to say, Zach, I don't know about this.
All right, any stories that should go lower? I mean, higher. I think
probably.
Yeah.
We got some... Do you know what's weirdly low? And I understand why we did it, but what's weirdly low in my mind? Mad Report Nights.
Yeah, it just keeps getting pushed down.
It's at 219, and I don't think that it's wrong, but it's probably... The story's probably better than what we have given it credit for.
Yeah.
Also, Avengers vs. X-Men is wildly high on this list. I think we were just like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
We're having a fun time here. It's a bad story, but we're enjoying it so much.
My answer is always New Mutant Summer Special is way too low on the list.
If we ever do a re-ranking podcast episode, 2 of them have to be Astonishing and have to be Summer Special, because I want to. Was Summer Special in the first episode? It was
really early.
Block we did,
really
or
early.
the second? Because what we did, the first 6 episodes were recorded over 2 weekends on like Sunday afternoons. Adam and I had never spoken before, and we just did it. And I have a different appreciation for Innocence. Like, I do feel like those 2 stories that we did early in the podcast they would have the biggest impact of how much a ranking has changed.
Yeah.
Because I think on both of those, we are of a different mindset.
Absolutely. And I think if I had to go for something that could probably go lower, I'd probably pick some Peter David stuff that I just don't care for. You know?
Listen, here's the thing about the Peter David stuff. That's been consistent through all of this that we've said, not the best.
It's okay, but I could probably knock it down a couple spots, you know?
People sometimes ask why I give Peter David a hard time, and I think there's a lot of reasons to give Peter David a hard time. But have you read those comics?
That's the bread and butter right there.
It's kind of like, are you sure you've read them recently? Because I get why people liked them, but you should also be able to get why people absolutely don't.
All right, so if we didn't answer your question, don't be offended. We just only had so much time tonight. We'll try and answer some of these on Twitter. And do we have to promote anything for the website? Go to Comics XF.
Shoot, probably. There's good stuff.
Always.
Over the last week, we did like a lot.
Yeah.
Of articles. Hold on, let me look because I edited some stuff that I thought was really good. I gotta look at our recents. We did a really good. There's an interview with David Pepos about his Savage Avengers, which is fun. We did a bunch of stuff about a bunch of different comics that we really liked. It's just good stuff. Like, here's the thing: I can't pick out what last week was like really good. But it was a good week. Like, there was just a lot of solid comics content, and that's what I like to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks, you can always follow me on Twitter at Arthur Stacy. And Zach, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we are going to be talking about Shatterstar and Longshot and Shatterstar and a recursive loop of that.
Whoa.
This is going to be a weird one.
I'm excited.
But hey, it'll be fun. And until then, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!